Well, good afternoon, folks. It's the real Captain Kirk here. It's the 1st of October, 2022. Hard to say happy Saturday here in light of what happened here this week. Here's obviously Hurricane Ian as a Cat 4. Winds 155, gusts to 190 in theory, making landfall between Fort Myers and Port Charlotte. Devastating hurricane, obviously. Again, ironically, about 18 years ago, this was the same area that Hurricane Charlie made a move here. So again, it was a much bigger storm than Charlie was. So again, much more costly when all is said and done here with Ian. Storm surge was huge, obviously. People forget that on top of storm surge is waves and lunar tides and everything else. So again, it's surge might be 10, 12 feet, but the waves are on top of that. So it can be 20 plus feet of water in some of these areas. Obviously, Ian made another landfall here in South Carolina around the Georgetown area. That's about 58 miles northeast of Charleston and 28 miles southwest of Myrtle Beach. Much weaker hurricane, but again, some flooding and storm surge nonetheless. In fact, some pretty large storm surge. Again, these concave bay configurations are just allow the water to pile up. There's no doubt Ian's going to make probably the top 10 list in terms of damage. We only have to get to about 34 billion in damages to get on that list. Again, so very likely Ian will make the list. Next 5 days, Hurricane Center is just watching some waves coming off Africa here. We are going to have to watch that even beyond the 5-day period here because the models hint at something in the Western Caribbean that could form up here as we get into the early to mid part of October here. So again, peak of the season, need to watch it. Again, the same area that Ian formed, there's another wave out there that could be interesting here to watch for the Gulf of Mexico as we get into the second full week of October here. Do a real quick recap here of last week of September here, week ending 1 October here this afternoon. So most of this in the history book. Here in the U.S., we were about 3.7 degrees colder than last year, 16th cold in 37 years. So this is very good trends for fall seasonal merchandise sales that have stacked up massive inventory because of the hot summer we've had. So good news here. There's definitely some uptick in sales. Rainfall obviously up because of Ian, 33% wetter than last year, 16th wettest in 37 years, above average U.S. rainfall. A little misleading because all that rain came in very heavy buckets across Florida and the southeast. Much of the rest of the country was pretty dry. So really good news here for retail sales in the eastern half of the country. Not so good in the west. We're still hot. Even Europe, pretty cold, about cold as 9 years. Again, very strong sales across Europe for seasonal sales as well. So again, a good week here in the making for retail sales. We look at this week here, those trends get even better here. This is the week prior to Columbus Day, a critical period here for U.S.-based retailers. Here in the U.S., about 7.3 degrees colder than last year, 14th coldest in 37 years. So below average temperatures really from all across the South, Midwest, Great Lakes, Northeast. Map bottom left there is, again, trends versus last year. So much, much colder. In fact, here in the Northeast, it's about 10 to 22 degrees colder than a year ago. So again, very, very cold. Again, not much rainfall. Again, 91% dry than last year, number one dries in 37 years. We need it. Farmers are out there harvesting. So again, some good news for them. Getting a little easier job out there to harvest millions of acres of corn and soybeans. If we look at this weather trends here now, so these are bars or year-over-year trends on the national scale here. So again, we had the very warm beginning of September, then a little brief cool snap, and then again, now the bottom falling out here. So going into the Columbus Day weekend here, the nation as a whole trending 10 to 12 degrees colder than last year. So that's huge. We'll quantify this here in a second, what that means for seasonal sales. Here in the Northeast, it's actually even colder, 10 to 22 degrees colder for the Columbus Day weekend. So very, very cold trends here. This is good news for retailers with all their inventory stacking up. We call our technology the power of 1 degree and how it translates to seasonal sales. So again, this Columbus Day weekend nationally, coldest in 10 years. Last year, number one hottest. So a big change, 12.3 degrees colder. And if we quantify that, again, our Power of One technology here that's analyzed thousands, close to 10,000 seasonal categories. So things like women's outerwear, fall outerwear, if you will, every degree colder, about a 5% increase in sales. So since we're 12.3 degrees colder, that's about a 62% increase this Columbus Day weekend in year-over-year sales. So huge sales gains here for retailers. They need it. Mounting inventory. We haven't needed to buy it yet, but I'm sure you've turned on your heat and thinking about sweaters and boots and all the things you need to do for the season ahead here. So this is some really good news. Weird things like mousetraps. Mousetraps they're just like humans. They like to get inside. They're starting to think it's fall too. So they're heading into your garage, your basement, your sheds. And so mousetrap sales can get a huge surge with cold weather and harvest weather like we're having here currently. Next week, again, the second week of October here, again, 2.7 degrees colder than last year. Still, that would be 12th warmest in 37 years, so above average national, but that's a tale of two halves. Very, very hot northwest, west, and still pretty cold here in the east. So again, east will be the spot for, again, continued strong sales for fall gear and things you need to weather the season ahead. West, not so much. Hot, so again, they'll be consuming bottled waters and still enjoying the almost summer-like conditions out west. We aggregate these 2-week trends here now. This is for the world overall for the 2 through 15 October timeframe. Again, cold eastern U.S. This map is trends versus average, so below average east, much above average for western North America. Even Europe's beginning to moderate while China cools off. So China will get pretty cold, and again, continuing very cold in Australia. Their spring season now is continuing their winter season. Very, very cold conditions down there. So again, the thing to watch is, again, next week, maybe another tropical system to be concerned about here. We'll see what happens here. So that, folks, we hope you have a great week, and we'll be back here again this time next week.